Welcome back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin, Sambois.
Welcome back for another engaging episode. By now, you've heard quite a few big announcements that we've had, and we just want to say thank you. Thank you for the large response to our latest book, The Journey from Who You Are to Who You're Meant to Be. We're seeing the messages, we're seeing the shares, and we really, really appreciate it. And today, in spirit of building and really kind of taking not only your personal journey to the next step, but also your professional journey to the next step, we're excited to welcome back a former guest of ours, Jeffrey Price Jr., who is now actually his second book has been just recently released. If you remember, we had Jeffrey on about a year ago, almost, was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago now. And at the time you were writing your first book, The Ins and Outs of Leadership. And, you were also talking about just your entrepreneurial journey. So Jeffrey is a two-time author, a serial entrepreneur. And today we are super excited to be talking with him about his latest venture, Pioneering with Purpose, Faith, Grit, and the 6 Bones every pioneer needs to dream big, kneel low, protect their hearts, and finish strong. So welcome, Jeffrey Price.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be with fellow pioneers, fellow builders, fellow people who are making a tremendous impact on the city of Columbus. So I'm like your biggest fan for both of you. So thank you for having me.
Yes, we're excited to have you. And so the fact that you wrote a second book already and it's been 2 years is phenomenal. Like, it took us 8 years to write The Journey.
The first one.
Off and on. And I think it's part of like just that discipline that we talked about. Like, we wanted to write the book, but it wasn't like super priority. Mm-hmm. But when it became priority, then it was like, okay, we knocked it out in months, literally. So I think the fact that you have written 2 books now in the past 2 years is really attributed to your kind of focus and your determination. And so I'm sure our listeners want to hear more of what really prompted, what inspired you to write The Pioneer, and really what was a defining moment for you in saying, okay, I have this first book, now I'm ready to launch this second book. Why?
Yeah, so I have a strong faith, a strong conviction with God and being a Christian. And I have an internal goal that I feel like through prayer that I would release a book every 3 years. So that's like my internal timeline to release a book. However, when it came to this book, I was personally going through the wilderness of my life. And that book came to me actually 5 years ago. But it didn't feel like that it was time to release it yet. Kind of like your book, to where life has a way that what we write about, we live it out. It's not just, oh, I'm just giving you like a fancy TED talk. It's like I'm writing about it because I bled it out. I walked it out. I lived it out. So from where I started in 2020 to where it was time to release the book in 2025, there were some experiences that I needed to go through. And that's what prompted me to release it this year, which was a little early from my deadline. But I felt that God was calling me out of that wilderness season of my life. And it was time to release that book to give other builders the framework on how they can navigate the wilderness in their lives.
I love that.
That's fantastic. What was your biggest growth moment by writing this book?
The biggest growth moment for me came when I was finally at the chapter to write about the backbone. So kind of going backwards, the 6 bones that are in the book are first the wishbone, which starts about vision and the mindset. And that before any builder can start to build, you have to have a vision, because the vision is what's going to hold you when the seasons get tough. And the wishbone is connected to your jawbone, because your world is built by the words that you speak. So after you get the vision, now you have to speak that thing into existence. And then the wishbone is connected to the breastbone. The breastbone serves 2 purposes. It's to guard your heart and protect your lungs. So as a builder, you're going to go through the disses. You're going to be discouraged. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to have distractions, and you're going to go through dismay, which is an old word, but it means not only are you disappointed, but you lost hope. And also, while you're building, it protects your lungs so that you have a healthy pace to while you build. And the breastbone is connected to the knee bone, which is about the power of surrender, the power of prayer, the power of humility. The knee bone shoots back up and is connected to the backbone, which is about faith, grit, and endurance. And finally, the backbone is connected to the funny bone, which is about having joy for the journey. So kind of going back to your question about why is the prompting is the backbone. I was going through one of the hardest seasons of my life. I had a pirate from my logistics company steal a shipment from me. It was a high-end, sophisticated crime syndicate that they had, and I lost $100,000. So this happened in November of last year, and I've had to pay $9,500 a month since last year. And I mean, it's had a tremendous impact on my faith, on my ability. I mean, my 16-year-old is like, Dad, why haven't you bought me a car yet? And I'm like, girl, I'm hustling right now. Like, I am bleeding emotionally, physically, and mentally. And that's where even the tagline for the book says, is for the builder who's bleeding, believing, and still showing up, because I had to use my backbone to still show up during that wilderness season of my life.
Wow. That's massive. And I think, and it's thank you for sharing that, because I think there is real opportunity for growth when you are transparent about, what you would define as maybe a setback or, 100,000. I mean,
Wow. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, you broke it down in monthly payments, but it's still a whole lot.
95,000, or what was it, 9,500?
$9,500 a month, and praise God, I made the last payment last week, $18,000. So I am free.
Yes,
And now
God.
Juliana can get her car hopefully by Christmas.
Okay, Juliana, if you're listening,
Right.
your dad just announced it to the world.
Yeah.
That he's getting you a car by Christmas. Hallelujah. In
Right.
Jesus' name.
Yeah, we claiming that. We're using the drawback.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yes. Well, you wrote about building while bleeding. And I think that's a really interesting kind of metaphor for, having to still show up, as a leader, as a CEO, as a father, as a partner. And oftentimes, especially in leadership, you often don't see those dark moments or the hard times of just, how am I going to pay this rent? How am I going to pay these employees? How am I going to show up in a way that, you're contributing to a healthy culture and climate even amongst your team, right? Because you could have easily been so bitter after this particular situation that it could have caused even more disruption throughout your company. But based on how you've described it, building while bleeding, you decided to make a different kind of approach to a situation that was really challenging. So how can leaders or believers keep showing up when they're fighting private battles behind the scenes?
I think that you two both walk that out, because as a leader, you're gonna get hit. And as an Army veteran, the first thing they teach us how to do is stop the bleeding, right? You apply bandages to your own wounds. You put a tourniquet on to stop the bleeding. And I think for leaders, we try to stop the bleeding ourselves. But when you're getting hit like that, to when you're getting hit emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, this is where you have to call somebody else to apply pressure to the wound. So I think the key in that situation, so that you don't bleed out, so to speak, is that you're able to call somebody that can apply pressure to stop you from where you're bleeding out and put a healthy pressure on you. So for me, I've been blessed that I have a great community of fellow leaders, wise counsel, that when I'm bleeding out, I can call them, or, by God's grace, they'll just call me and be like, hey, Jeff, I just thought about you today. How are you doing? And I think both of you know what that feels like, to where, why did this person hit me up out the blue? And then it's like, all right, now I'm fighting back the tears. My eyes are getting sweaty. And I've just had so many of those moments. So I think the key is having a community and having people around you that know how to put pressure on those wounds.
Love that.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. I think as leaders, we absolutely relate and understand. What I appreciate is, as women, we're more open to share like our battles, and, and we get a tribe and we have the queens around. For men, it's not as easy to acknowledge a failure, to acknowledge a setback, right? For so many reasons, stereotypes, social, norms. But I appreciate that you're coming on with us to share that. I mean, with us specifically, but also with our audience, because there's a lot of males that listen to us, and they are in that crossroad right now. They're battling a lot of internal things, and they may not have, that group, that village. So for those that don't have someone they can call, right? Like they haven't built that yet, or for whatever reason they lost it, what advice would you give them as they are facing this crossroad right now?
I would say, if there's a man that doesn't have a community and he doesn't feel like he has an outlet, I think there's power in writing out how you feel. And it might sound soft or feminine, like, hey, I'm this guy and I'm journaling. But at the same time, I'm an Army veteran. I grew up in the hood, right on the south side of Columbus. And there's power to just expressing your emotions. I mean, my dad didn't even make it to 60. His dad died at 65. So I have an internal awareness to know that keeping my emotions and feelings bottled up, I'll be right on the same track as they were. So I think the ultimate answer for men who don't have a community is to express themselves, even if it's just written. I mean, there were times before I had like a better level of emotional intelligence to where I would open up a Word document, turn it to white font, and just mash away how I'm feeling. Like I can't even see how I'm feeling, but at least I expressed it and got it out. Because oftentimes when men bottle up their emotions, then they implode, right? So it's like, why did this dude just crash out? And I just asked him like, how you doing? And he just like, rah, 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 rah. It's because he imploded because he didn't know how to release his emotions. So I would say just getting on the journal and writing it out.
Thank you. Also, you have a big following in LinkedIn. You're like one of those, I just read this, that there's like a small percentage of people. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn, but a very small percentage of people that are actually creating content in LinkedIn. And I keep hearing that this week. I heard it like 3 times in different ways. So I'm guessing it's a message for us. I'm like, okay, I hear it. And now what, right?
Yeah.
But you have been a good example, right? I get your emails with your newsletter when you put it on LinkedIn. You know, you're very out here putting the content and giving the value. So and I say this to say for those that are listening, like Jeff is on LinkedIn. There's other platforms that you are in that you can share, but that is somewhere you're very active. So if someone is looking to link up with you or to learn from your the newsletter that you share with a lot of content, that's a way they can get in touch with you and hopefully start putting you in one of those village people, right, that they can count on.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say God has called me to a lot of tribes, but specifically, I know that I've been called into men's ministry and to minister to men and to be able to meet them where they are. So if you are a man and you are watching this, please reach out to me because I feel that one of God's calling on my life is to be the brother to men.
Wow, I love that. And I think that it's so needed right now. I mean, it's always been needed, but I feel like it's more prevalent in this day and age, and I feel like it's also more accepted. I don't know as a man, and I can't speak to that. Maybe you can, but I feel like, our generation as millennials, like you start to see a lot more opportunity just to be honest and to be real about what you need. And I think as women, understanding a little bit more from a male's perspective, like we want men to provide, we want men to lead, but we don't give a lot of space and opportunity for grace or for moments where, now I'm not saying, you can have moments, right? So I think there's about asking for what you need and then also putting in the work to heal so that you can be the type of partner you want to be or the type of husband or son or what have you, father. And so I think, in your book, you talk a lot about, the different strategies. You mentioned something about a 3-headed dragon as the enemy of the pioneer's mindset. And so what was your kind of mindset around your frame of thought with this particular part of your book, and as it ties into what we're talking about, as men have had a lot more challenges of being honest about what they ultimately need?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the 3-headed dragon came to me just sitting with my father. He was like a big Godzilla fan. He used to make me watch like all these Godzilla movies. So the main antagonist in Godzilla is this dragon, right? And it has one body, but it has 3 separate heads. And I write in the book that for the builder, whether you're a man or a woman, is that 3-headed dragon is coming for you to stop you before you ever get started. And the first head of that dragon is procrastination. So procrastination is the master of delay. It's telling you, hey, just do it tomorrow. But from my own personal experience, what I put off tomorrow, when tomorrow came, I said, I'll just do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into a week turns into a month turns into the year. And then that head of regret comes in because if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. If God called you to do it and you don't do it, he's just going to find somebody else. And there's nothing more than a sickening feeling for you to have an idea or a prompting, you don't follow through, and then you see somebody else who did it and it's taken off. And it's like, I had that, but I procrastinated. The second head is perfectionism. So if that dragon can't get you to stop, like delaying you with procrastination, now perfectionism comes in. And I call that the polished prison. I find a lot of people get into that polished prison to where it's like, oh, it's not good enough yet. Let me just redo it. Let me just edit it one more time. Let me just keep working it. And really, it's perfectionism disguised as a spirit of excellence. You think that you're being excellent, but you're really not, because you're on the treadmill of starting something, right? You're probably getting in really great shape. You're getting results, but you're never releasing it, so you're never moving anywhere. You just get really good at rehearsing the same thing over and over. And if you make it past perfectionism, which I say just release it messy, which what I've been doing, I've been making a lot of reels and stuff for the book every morning. And I'm like, dag, I should probably go back and redo it. But I'm like, you know what? Your audience needs to grow with you. I look back at like old TD Jakes sermons from 30 years ago when he first started and had bad cameras and lighting and stuff. But I'm like, I appreciate the growth.
Yeah.
So I believe to defeat perfectionism, you just got to release it messy, and then you'll just get better as you grow, and your audience will appreciate it. And finally, the last head of that three-headed dragon is permission. And that's the head that says, who do you think you are? Why do you think you should be in the room? And I mean, that's the head that speaks to me the loudest, because I can move past procrastination. I can get past perfectionism. But for me, I never finished college. I always had this thing where I never lived up to like my grandmother's expectations, because I never just finished some things that were important to them, right? So whenever I'm in the room, whether it's at the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, sitting at the table, that head is like, who do you think you are? Why do you think you should be here? But I got to remember that if God placed me there, then he made space for me, and I have a voice to be there. So ultimately, those are the three-headed dragons. It affects men and women. But for men, I see them mostly get stuck at procrastination. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of guys are procrastinators, man. They'll just put stuff off and put stuff off and put stuff off, because guys get wrapped up in comfort. You know, they don't want to be uncomfortable. They get in these comfortable situations, whether they're married, where they have kids, they feel like they made it, but life has more for them. But procrastination wraps them in comfort, and they just never fully pursue what God has for them.
Very true. Yeah. And I guess as women, you know, I think that's a great segue into, you know, as leaders, you know, Maylin and I talk about this often, is just having accountability, right? Because it's easy to fall into procrastination. It's easy to, you know, as you mentioned, perfectionism. I think as women, I think we think about that a lot more, I would imagine, than men do, because they're, you know, I mean, the truth is we have to work harder. The truth is we get paid less for the same work that you all do. The truth is that, you know, a woman of color even makes even less. And so I feel like there's constantly this pressure of feeling like you have to not only perform, but you have to perform at a higher level. Right. And so I think going back to your earlier point about, you know, community and about creating a village, I think is so critically important to call you out when you're like, listen, you said you were going to write this book. You said that you were going to start this business, or you were going to go back to school. Like, where are we at with that?
Yeah.
And so you mentioned that a little bit about just kind of like some of your community. But can you share a little bit more just about, you know, any kind of strategy as it relates to really creating discipline around the things that you've achieved and what's to come, right? Obviously, this is not like the cap of what you're trying to do, but it did take some type of formula because it's not motivation. We all know that. Everybody's sitting at this table. You don't wake up every day wanting to seize, and maybe you do. I mean, I just can only speak for, you know, us as entrepreneurs, and have also been building for well over a decade. Some mornings you just don't feel it. And, you know, so it's just, I would be curious to hear, like, what does discipline look like for you? And when you feel like you are in these three heads of procrastination, perfectionism, and kind of still wandering through the permission phase, like, what really helps keep you grounded or get you back on track?
Yeah, I would say it goes back to the wishbone and having the vision, because if I truly believe that God gave me this vision and this is where I'm supposed to go for my family, and you mentioned accountability, I would like to say accountability and responsibility kind of go hand in hand, but consistency is that glue between the two, right? So it's like consistency will outwork the most talented people in the room, is that you just keep showing up. And that's how you defeat that three-headed dragon, is that I have people that are going to hold myself accountable. And because of my faith, I believe in stewardship. I believe that God gave me a gift. I believe that he's going to hold me accountable too and say, hey, Jeff, I gave you all these gifts. What did you do with them? What's my return on investment? I gave you the gift of speaking. I gave you the gift of writing. I gave you the gift in logistics. What did you do with that? And, I have a fear of God in my heart that I don't want to be in front of my own little judgment seat. And it's like, man, I sat on that. Like, I didn't do anything with it. So I think that being my why and that being my foundation has helped me to push through those seasons when I don't feel like it. And then oftentimes I just got to get out my feelings. Like, what are the facts? The fact is, I never got better at doing something by not doing it. If you're just showing up every day, you are naturally going to get better. How do I become a better speaker? I speak. How do I become better on video? I record myself daily. So having that mindset of consistency and knowing that every day I will be a little bit better than I was yesterday if I just keep showing up. And I'll just close with this on that question. I have a mantra that I say to myself, and it's no compete because I'm unique. Because oftentimes we get wrapped up looking at other people, looking at their likes or their views, and you realize that now I'm so far out of my lane because I'm not focused anymore. I'm staring at you and your followers and what you're doing that I'm competing with you, and you don't even care who I am. Like, you don't even know me, and I'm watching you and I'm focused on you. So I keep that in my mind to say, just be a better version of Jeff every day, and that'll get me to the finish line of what God has for me.
Yeah.
And piggybacking of this, so I'm going to go back to discipline. I just got this thing, like, we're meeting with a lot of entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs. Lately, we've been asking this question, right, like a discipline, and we're getting a few different answers. So I'm starting to see a trend, and I'm going to see if that theory is correct. So could you share with us, what is your morning routine or night routine like in order to get to this level?
Yep. So my morning routine is I'm up between 4 and 5 every day. And it's not because I'm like this drill sergeant that feel like I have to get up early. I mean, I got 4 kids. My sons are 8 months old and 3 years old. So I have a limited amount of time to get stuff done. And I feel like a lot of the reason why people lack discipline is they give themselves too much time, right? We all have the same 24 hours, but the discipline is, what are we going to do with that 24? So as soon as I get up, I hit the Bible, do my little prayers, meditation, and then I start recording on what content I'm going to make for the day, because I made an agreement with myself that when I release this book, because I learned from my first book that I didn't push it as hard as I should have. So with this book, I'm like, you know what? My work week is Sunday through Friday, 6 days a week. I am going to make a 5-minute reel sharing about the book, sharing about little gems. And then from that 5-minute reel, I can cut it, from that 5-minute talk, I can cut it up and make 7 reels that I can repurpose for later content later. So holding myself to the fire with that, I mean, that's really where that discipline comes from. And I hope I answered your question. I didn't want to get too far off of it.
No, that's fantastic. It's confirming my trend that we're seeing.
Right.
But everybody's waking up at 4 a.m. Everybody that's a serial entrepreneur, we're like, this is great. So you have the morning routine, right? You do all those things before, I guess, the kids wake up and they call daddy.
Yes.
What happens at night? So in order to get up at 4, something has to happen the night before. Do you have a night routine? Do you have a way, how many hours you need for your brain to function?
Yep. With that morning routine, because I have hard cutoffs to where, my wife has to take my son to preschool by 8, I have to be finished with the first half of the morning by 7. So that includes everything I mentioned, plus getting 30 to 45 minutes at the gym. And then I really only have 10 till 2 because my toddler, I have to watch him until my mother-in-law comes. So I have a solid 4 hours before I have to pick him up from school to just sprint. So I just go on an incredible sprint to where no distractions, phones off, and I'm just completely focused on what I need to do for the tech company, for the coaching business, for the logistics company, just completely dialed in for a dedicated 4 hours. Pick my son up now the afternoon starts, get the kids situated, and then when nighttime comes, I try to catch up, go back and do 1 hour of catching up on emails throughout the day. Because at the end of the day, as you guys know, being entrepreneurs, being mothers, success is going to cost you. And you have to really choose, like, where is that cost, or where are you going to pay that cost? And that's where it kind of comes into having your non-negotiables. So for me, I write about this in the book. My family was the first thing to go. I used to cancel my family, like, for work meetings, for doing this, for doing that. And then when I surrendered my life to God, I got convicted of that. Like, you literally put your career as an idol. And that's when I started being more active in Juliana's life, picking her up from school, being more active with all my kids, because kind of going back to the man thing, I thought I was a good dad because I paid for stuff, but I didn't really spend time with them. So setting aside time to really spend with my family, spend with my wife, those are things that have become my non-negotiables that's helped me with the discipline and keep my day focused.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go back to the 4 hours now because it sounds like the Tom Ferriss kind of 4 hour work week. I feel like you read that book. So for the 4 hours, and this is for serial entrepreneurs that have not figured out the system yet, right? So you have a 4 hour sprint that you do multiple things. Can you show us a little bit or walk us through, like, how do you divide those 4 hours? Is it different every day, or do you have a plan of like, okay, these are the 4 hours, I dedicate 1 hour to this? So kind of share with us what's your strategy.
Yeah, and I think with both of you being founders, there becomes a pivot to where I write about this in the book about how to scale your business to where you can be your worst enemy. Like there were times through that wilderness season where I was my own bottleneck because I wanted to do everything. So I had to put systems in place, and that's what surrender looks like, to where I had to release certain roles and responsibilities that I love to do and hand it off to my team so that I could really be more effective and efficient to really grow the business. So I think the answer to those systems is, well, number one, having that community, because eventually the founder moves to the foundation, and you want to have a firm foundation that you can build something that people can run with and that can have layers to excellence. And it comes with being willing to surrender certain roles and responsibilities to other people on your team. And if you don't have a team, then there's so many tools as far as AI, things of that nature, fractional roles to where you can hire contractors. I mean, I'll contract out something in a minute, and I have great success doing that. I'll 1099 you in a minute, get done what I need to get done, and we all go our separate ways. It's a win-win for everybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Maylin, that's how I feel about that.
She loves teams. She loves delegating.
Yes. Well, because I think Jeff said this before. I think if you lock in on really like what your asset is, like I can't be all things to all people, especially in our businesses. As much as I feel like, yes, I could contribute to this or I could help with that, but if I'm not really doing my gift with fidelity, then I personally feel like I'm failing in my space in terms of my contribution.
Yes.
And so I think there's a piece of it being able to create leverage and create teams, but then there's a piece that's your piece. And if you don't have, it's like a puzzle. Like if your piece ain't connected, depending on what your business is, then the puzzle isn't complete. And I think it just depends on where you are in your season of business and where you ultimately, like, where you trying to grow it, right? So I think this is an opportunity for our listeners to pause if you are in this space of building a business, trying to evaluate, like, where are you in the season of the business? And are you in a spot that your piece is still critical to the overall completion of the puzzle? Or is your piece kind of like an extra where it's like it now adds value? You had the vision. It was your job to start it, but ultimately can the picture be complete with or without your piece? And I think that's a part of everybody's business where we're constantly in the go. You don't take enough time to really reflect. And I think the work that she and I do, which is a lot of different things, I don't think we're at a space yet where our piece doesn't need to be, it's not, our piece still matters to the overall vision. And so I think, even though it's a lot and there's a lot of roles and responsibilities, we still have to be very laser focused on what our individual contributions are to achieve what it is that ultimately we still are responsible for achieving.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point that when you first start building, we all wear the chief everything officer hat, right? I'm the marketing guy, I'm the sales guy, I'm the tech guy, I'm the operations guy. But as you grow, you kind of figure out where your niche is. Like there's riches and niches. So it's like for me, especially in the trucking company or the logistics company, me talking to truck drivers all day, that's not expanding the company. That's not increasing margin. I need to be talking to shippers and being the face of the franchise and doing stuff like this. Let them do that part. They don't need me to do that part. But when I first started, I wore all those hats. But like you said, there's wisdom to know what season you're in and when to hand something off. And I would say, just to compliment what you said, you'll know when it's time, when the blessing starts to feel like a burden. To where what felt like a blessing, like, oh, I get to do this, and now you're like, yo, I'm like burnt out. Like, that's where like, hey, I should probably start getting ready to hand this stuff off because it doesn't feel like a blessing anymore. Like, I sat there, I prayed for this, and now it's like, yo, this feels like a burden. That's when I look at it as your cue to get ready to hand some stuff off.
Yeah. And a lot of those things are like expenses in your business. So sometimes people, like, they cannot reconcile that by delegating, you actually are putting out expenses, is helping your tax bracket, which is actually very important to have a tax person. For us, whether it be a business or a nonprofit, like for us in the beginning, we used to do the books. And like you said, it was like a blessing because we were doing all this and then it got big. And I'm like, oh, this is not a blessing. All these receipts, I hate it. Like I was like, oh my God, help me somebody. And, we were blessed that we had some people that helped. But eventually we actually had to we have multiple people now. We have a bookkeeping company that handles the transactions monthly. We have an accountant that works with this bookkeeping company and they would do the 990. For it went from like an electronic one to like a now hundreds of pages, now 90. Now that's a blessing, but if we didn't have this right people in place to handle that, like before you asked me for a report, I was sweat, like I have to get all these numbers together. Now you ask me for a report, I excited. I'm like, 1 minute, QuickBooks, let me email these 2 people and I will have it to you in a few hours. Yeah. It's incredible, the relief that you get when you put the right system in place. And I feel like we are doing that in multiple places in the organization, right? So you also cannot do it all at one time. So this is my message to people. Look at everything you have and be like, what is the thing that, like Jeff says, feels like the biggest burden right now? What is the thing that you start sweating when somebody asks you for? And then figure out how you can leverage that. And that is a business expense. Like that is absolutely a business expense. You're going to have to pay it anyway. So why not pay it out of the business? And then you make more money. Yeah. We have invested in people to do some of the pieces that have helped us double, triple our revenue. But is what is your return of investment on the things that you're making? So if it's booking and bookkeeping, you're going to need that because that's going to help you to get funding. That's going to help you to get, other people to trust that the things are being done correctly. So I truly advocate for a tax person, a bookkeeper,
good lawyer,
good lawyer,
right?
QuickBooks is great. I should get an affiliate code. I'm going to get an affiliate code. That's what I'm going to do for my next thing. So everybody can get one, but it really helps and it gives peace of mind. So if it's not for you, the finances piece, because maybe you're an accountant, good for you, then is it a communication? Is it an admin? Do you need an admin? So you don't have to be sending out email invitations and invites for meetings every 5 minutes. Maybe you have someone that does that for you.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think in your book you mentioned, you talk about, this very specific journey. And I haven't read the book completely. I've read some of the inserts as you've posted and some of the things you've put on LinkedIn. But I think that as an entrepreneur, or even if you are not an entrepreneur, but you obviously have a very demanding career, I think this is applicable not only to just entrepreneurs, but you constantly ask yourself, is it worth it? Was all of this worth it? And, part of what you have in your book, you have a question. Every pioneer eventually faces the exact question, is it worth it? And what keeps you anchored in your why when things get tough? And what does that look like for you?
Going back to my faith and my belief system, I feel like that my journey for building is like a commandment. Like I feel like that it's a direct heavenly calling from God, a commission to go do it. So having that anchor, it helps me make sense of when stuff happens. So like even with the freight being stolen, losing $100,000, I get to exercise the funny bone. I have joy for the journey to where for somebody who didn't share that faith, they would lose it. Like, last year you did 1.8 million. This year you're on the verge of bankruptcy. Like that would make somebody go crazy. But for me, I'm like, I understand the process for God to multiply. You give him something, he blesses it, then he breaks you, and then he multiplies it. So for God to take me to that next level, he had to break me. He had to break me from old habits, old thought processes. And I've never been a millionaire before, so I don't know how to get there, but he does. So oftentimes the plan or the route that he takes us on is going to look like ups and downs, valley lows and mountain highs. But being able to be even-keeled and having the perspective like, if God allowed this to happen to me, he doesn't waste pain, right? The scripture says that he keeps all of our tears in a bottle in Psalms 56. So if he allowed this for me to go through that, then there has to be some purpose behind it. He wouldn't just let me suffer for no reason. So having that perspective helps me to have the faith and know that what I'm building is for generations. It's something for my kids, for their kids. I joke and say that they're going to have a picture on the wall and say, hey, yo, thank great granddad for making all these crazy decisions because now we live in this multi-million-dollar house, So I just think generationally minded, and that's part of my why.
Well, if there's a listener right now who might be in this stuck season, right? Like you obviously are very clear about your why, you're very anchored in your beliefs. And I think oftentimes, that's a blessing to be kind of
To
in
have.
right, to have that mindset to be able to pull yourself out, especially when situations are heavy and dark, especially at a time where I feel like across the world right now, it just feels heavy. And it's been heavy, quite frankly, ever really since the pandemic. What would you say to a listener or somebody who reads your book who might be in this space of feeling stuck and feeling like, they don't have the same anchored belief system. They don't have the same village that you've described. What would be one practical step that they can take this week to start moving forward again?
I would say to get that momentum is taking the decision to take one step, even if it's not a step and all you can do is crawl. Just one bit of movement. I found, whether you share my beliefs in God or not, everybody has a still small voice that speaks to them where you say like, oh, that's a good idea. And just taking that one step to pursue it. It might be like sending an email, starting a business plan, even drafting an LLC if you're in business, reaching out to somebody. Just one small step. And every time that I felt stuck personally, just one step. Even if I just made a call, did an email, just one small momentum, one small movement starts a snowball effect, right? Because it's like once you start moving, things start rolling downhill real quick and you can go from 0 to 100. And I always try to remember that I'm always one yes or one conversation away from something that can completely change my life. So I would say to that person who feels stuck, you're literally one call, one conversation, one text message, one email away from your breakthrough. But all it takes is for you to make that step. And honestly, you have nothing to lose by taking a step. Staying where you are, you know what's going to happen. You're going to feel the exact way you felt yesterday, today. But if you take one step, you will immediately start feeling better, and you never know what's on the other side of that door.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. This is good. And then I'm thinking about your loss of 100,000.
I know.
And this is why I'm thinking of this. When we did our podcast launch, we talked about like when a failure happens or something bad, you don't start from scratch. You start from, experience, lessons. So from that moment and that horrible thing, I don't know what it is. So hopefully you can tell us. Did you take now preventive measures? Because now it showed you something that you didn't know, and it could have prevented you from losing $1 million in the future. So this big 100,000 now could have been, right? So I'm just thinking that like that's what's coming to me. I don't know why, but I want to talk about that. Like, tell me about that.
Hey, I'll receive it.
Me too. 100%.
Yeah, because that's my perspective too. It's like if God allowed that to happen, then it's because He's preparing something for me
Absolutely.
greater in the future. So I'd rather lose 100,000 now. And to your point, I tightened up my systems, tightened up my processes, tightened up my fraud prevention, things of that nature, to where now, like, it's so hard for somebody to attack me. I wouldn't say it's impossible,
Right.
but there's so many layers of protection that I have now. And going back to your point, a good lawyer, I mean, it could have been way worse had I not had a good lawyer, because he saved me like $40,000 on what could have been even worse than what I paid, because he just knew the system. So going back to having the right people around you, but honestly, is that perspective that you just said, and that really ministered to my heart, because that's the perspective you got to have. They're not losses, they're lessons. And if it's allowed to happen to you, if you exercise that backbone and don't compromise, then that's how you really can show what you're made of.
Yeah.
Because, we say we have backbone and that we wouldn't fold under pressure. But when it's in your face, what you going to do?
Right.
And I feel like for me, for what I stand on, what I'm preaching and all this stuff, if I fold there, I'm going to fold later too.
Right.
And I felt like this was a test for me to show like, man, you talk that good talk, Jeff. You talk about God. You talk about Jesus. You talk about faith. Stand on that.
Yeah.
Stand on business. You said this man of integrity, and you do this, stand on it. And I felt like God was testing me. And ultimately, that's what backbone looks like, because you're going to be tested as a builder, as a pioneer. But when the rubber meets the road, are you going to stand on business? Because if you compromise once, I guarantee that when another opportunity comes, you're going to compromise again.
100%. And it's so true, because it was so funny. I think so last year, it was last year. Yeah, last year, I was going through a lot of things professionally. And I remember I called. I think I texted you or called you. I can't remember which one it was. And I was like, I need to talk to you. And I don't know why, but it was something. And I don't know if you know what it was? Going back now that I think about it, I think you saw something in the paper or the news. I think you messaged me
you were all in
like,
the paper.
yeah. So I was all over the news. So going to his point, it's like when people just randomly like have a calling to message you or text. That's exactly what happened. You like, I just saw like this thing. Like, what? Like, you good? Like, what's going on? And I just remember being like, no, I'm not good. I'm about to pack it up. Because going back to your point, it's like, are you going to stand on business? And I was like, I'm not standing on business. I'm about to back this up and go home because I don't have time for this. Yeah. Because it will test you to the point where you just, like, you will crash out. And you will literally get to a place where you don't want to go back to the person you used to be, because that's the growth, right? Like, you know, God is taking you from all of these different versions and seasons of yourself, but then you feel confined. And, you know, just like your situation, like, you weren't the one who stole these products, but now you have to be held accountable. You still have to show face. You still have to keep the relationships. And so I think it's such a I appreciate you sharing that, because I remember in that season you messaged me and I called you and you was like, I basically told you, it's like, listen, I don't think I'm not going to move forward with this. And you say, you will regret this. Like, knowing what I know about you, if you don't stand on this and just push through, you will look back on this time and you will regret doing that. And I was just like...
And doing that means folding.
Folding. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. Because I was literally like... I got into my own ego about it. Like, I ain't got to prove nothing to nobody. Like, I can pack it up. I can do what I have to do.
Tina was coming.
Yes, because you get to a mechanism of like protection, and you're just like, you know,
it was survival.
It was a survival moment. And I remember you specifically saying, like, if you do this, you will regret it. You will look back and you will regret doing this particular thing if you decide to not stand on business and not push through it. And I really appreciated that, because it was like a handful of people that I actually was talking to regularly around that season. And I'm so grateful. Like, in retrospect, it's like that easily could have broke me in so many ways. And God willing, like, I got through that. It didn't affect a lot of other things, but it was really the village of folks who was really able to say, like, listen, you're bigger than this. Like, just continue to do what you got to do. And I really appreciate that, because I think that a lot of people need that level of support, and you will get it in the least expected spaces.
Yeah, and I mean, I've read most of your guys' book, and I mean, you write about that so eloquently in your book that your testimony becomes the breakthrough or the launching pad for somebody else. Like, the way that you navigated that season, the way that you leaned on each other, the way that, you know, you helped bandage the wound on Christina. I mean, it's such a beautiful section of the book to watch how you two, like, have this sisterhood that it's like, I don't know. It's like, I wish I had a friend like that. Like, I have a lot of friends, but the friendship that you guys have to be co-pioneers, to build together, to not have any jealousy, any ill will, to complement each other and stand by each other. I mean, it's special. Like, you guys have a truly, truly special relationship.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We like to believe it's a gift. Like, you know, our youth went through a lot. So I think God was like, let me just bless you now in your 20s and 30s. But I want to add to this a little bit. So you both, I mean, all of us have been through things, but you guys were like very public. Like, yours was very public. I am sure for you was very, you know, big, because people could think you did it, right? Like, isn't it crazy? We're like, well, how do we know this was really stolen? Like, right? In the logistics world, I don't know how it works, but so you had people that helped you with that. And then when I went Christina with that season, you know, I'm very proud of her for going to like experts, right? Because sometimes we get advice, and this is for everybody listening. You're going through something real difficult right now. And you're getting advice from people that have not been through this thing that you're going through, people that love you but don't have the right advice that could really hurt you in the future. So my suggestion is having experts. And if you don't have an expert in your circle, then find one, because we went to a lawyer to get some perspective of how to handle that in another way, right? Because I could be like, you know, my friend protective person wanted to fight. Like, my Dominican, it was like, And I was like, hold on, let's get a lawyer. Let's talk to the people that know law, right? And know political law, because that's very different than any type of law. So I encourage people to truly find an expert in the situation that you're in, to get some perspective. At the end, you get to make your choice. So you always have a final choice, because Christina had a choice, you had a choice. But having the expert opinion is really important as you're moving forward with whatever you're facing right now, because it could really save you a lot of headaches, a lot of money, and a lot of regret in the future. So don't just wing it. Like, get expert advice.
100. And I know we're almost at time, which I mean, the time went by so fast. So we definitely are going to have you on maybe for a part 2 at a later time. But what's next for you? Just as we are closing up today, obviously the book is out. You want to tell our folks where they can find it, but just anything you want to share about like what's next for you, or what people can expect, or any final messages that you want to tie into the book, or just any of your personal perspective.
Yeah, so I'll say what's next. And as you guys both know, a book launch is literally a launch, right? We feel like we made it to the finish line. We put all ourselves into it, got the book out. But that's really just where it starts, because now it's like, now we got to market this thing. Now we got to push it. So for me, as far as the book goes, I'm doing the Audible book. I'm hopping in the studio to record it to the Audible, because people learn in different ways. Not everybody learns by just reading. Some people are just more auditory. So I'm going to self-narrate the book, have that out by the holiday season, get that out. I'm recording the courses to go along with the book. So that way people who want more, I write all my books at a high level, because if you hand me a 300-page book, keeping it a buck, I'm probably not going to read it. But if you give me a book that I can read, like while I'm traveling on a plane or something, I got it. So, but there's so much more than what's in that book. So that's why I'm creating the courses. I hope to have that out by first quarter of 2026. And then last but not least is building a community. I know what it's like to be a builder. I know what it's like to be a pioneer. I know what it's like to get bit by I call it the build-a-bug, to where you get bit by it and you feel like you want to go build something. And I want to create a community where people who are pioneers, they're great leaders. Leaders take you to where you've never gone before, but pioneers build what hasn't been built before. So it's a different speed from leading to building, right? It's one thing if like, I'm just taking over this company, it's been established. I'm not trying to throw shade, but it's a lot different to when you're building from the ground up. You put your own money into it. You put your own skin into it. It's just completely different. Yeah. So building a community of pioneers and builders, that's what I have coming in 2026. And I would say my last charge is for those that are builders, such as us three, to not lose faith. The wishbone is there to give you vision. Don't lose sight of your wishbone. And once you have your vision, speak that thing into life until you can see what you said. And as you build your words and you're speaking life into yourself, guard your heart. Build with pace. Use your breastbone. Finally, don't forget the power of prayer. I'm telling you, prayer works. Every faith, they pray. And there's something to it, whether you believe it or not, there's something to it. Walk in prayer, use the knee bone. And after you use the knee bone, use your backbone. Courage, grit, resilience. All those things require courage and backbone. And finally, building anything for your life, for legacy, is supposed to be a joyous experience. So have fun while you're building, smile, enjoy the journey, have joy for the journey. I feel like I'm tying into your guys' book, but have joy, man. Smile. Don't be all G.I. Jeff and be all mad all the time. Like, smile, go through it. And that's my charge for the builders and pioneers listening to this podcast.
Well, thank you so much. As you know, we are really grateful to have you on, and thank you for the work that you're leading. And we certainly look forward to learning more about the workshops next year, and maybe some collaboration opportunities. I think our book has a lot of alignment, and we'll have to see what that looks like in 2026. So
I'll take it.
Yes. So as we close out here at True Print for Life, as you know, we always have and close on our own mantra, which is bigger than you. So on the count of 3, we'll do it. It's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.